Ghostwire Tokyo is one of the most misunderstood games in recent memory. When it launched, the takes came in hot. Mindless combat, pointless busy work, style over substance, and honestly, I believed the noise. I skipped it for years. But 3 years later, I finally gave it a shot. And now I can say, without hesitation, most of that criticism, completely off the mark. This game isn't a perfect 10 out of 10 experience, but it is a hell of a good time. So in this video, I want to unpack why Ghostwire Tokyo deserves more credit than it got. We'll dig into the combat, the world, the pacing, and yes, even the side content, and figure out what criticism actually holds up and what was just flat out nonsense. Just so you know, this review is as spoiler free as possible. I won't spoil any major story beats, but just give an honest breakdown of what this game does well and where it stumbles. But first, let's get you up to speed of what this game is about. You play as Agito Izuki, a young man who tragically dies in a motorcycle crash on his way to see his sister. But instead of staying dead, he gets resurrected by a spirit named KK, who tries and fails to fully possess his body. KK has only possessed Agito's right hand, which means that Agito is left in full control but with access to KK's spirit-based powers. What follows is a mix of personal and supernatural stakes. Agito is trying to save his sister, while KK wants to take down Hanaya, who is the creepy masked man you've seen on the covers. See, Hanaya is responsible for the mysterious fog that's made Tokyo's population completely disappear. Agito and KK's partnership starts out extremely shaky, and it's clear that they don't care for each other. But as they overcome the dangers over Tokyo, their goals align, and what started out as a strained relationship soon turns into an almost brotherly bond. While the story is relatively short, it's very well crafted. I was highly invested in their journey and was curious to learn more about Hanaya's motives. And the setting. Tokyo really shines in this game. It gotta be the best rendition of Tokyo ever made in a video game. It's beautifully eerie with ghosts, neon lights reflect off the wet pavement, headless school kids roam the alleyways, and while some people find the world too empty, I think they found the perfect balance between a city that is void of any humans and streets that are crawling with visually striking enemies. It's haunting, but in the coolest way possible. So with that out of the way, let's debunk some of the biggest criticisms this game has faced. Let's address the elephant in the room. This game has faced a lot of criticism for how many side objectives there are, leading some to believe it's only for platinum gamers. I'm by no means a platinum gamer myself. I find absolutely no joy in scouring every corner of a map to collect feathers in Assassin's Creed or running errands in Horizon. But yes, there is a lot, and I mean a lot of busy work in the game. You could easily spend over 20 hours clearing torii gates, collecting Jizo statues, hunting down Tanuki, and gathering investigation notes, relics, Magatama, voice logs, and over 240,000 souls. Most of these activities reward you with skill points and abilities making Agito stronger, so there's definitely somewhat of an incentive to complete them. The side missions are also rewarding in the sense that they deepen your understanding of the world and its lore. The good news is that almost none of it is required to finish the main story. Unlike modern day Assassin's Creed, where you're more or less forced to complete side missions to meet level requirements, Ghostwire Tokyo almost never force you into any side content. I found it completely natural to complete a few side objectives while heading towards the next main mission. This approach kinda kept the pacing fresh and enjoyable, balancing the progression of story and Agito's skill tree. That said, there is one point where the game does stumble a bit in terms of pacing, and that's with the torii gates. While most of the side content in Ghostwire Tokyo is optional, clearing certain torii gates isn't just encouraged, it's actually required to progress. And depending on how you're playing up to that point, this can feel a little jarring. Sometimes you're completely locked into the story, heading towards the next major mission, only to suddenly be hit with a wall of fog and be told, yeah, you gotta go purify a bunch of gates first. It really does pull you out of the momentum. It kinda breaks the rhythm the game otherwise does a really decent job at maintaining. And while the act of cleansing a torii gate isn't particularly difficult, it's usually just a short combat encounter followed by an interaction, it is really repetitive. So bottom line, whether you're a platinum gamer or someone who hates 100%ing games, the game definitely has something for you. To complete the main storyline, you're looking at around 12 hours, while 100%ing the game will take you closer to 40. I clocked in at just under 20 hours and walked away feeling really happy with the time I spent with the game. And even though I personally wouldn't recommend that you complete all filler content, if there's one side mission you gotta play, it's Fear for the Children. I'm not kidding, this mission might have been the highlight of my entire playthrough. I won't spoil too much, but I'll just give you the premise so you know what you'll miss out on. You're essentially tasked with investigating the disappearance of a group of high school kids. So you make your way through the city and find an ominous Japanese high school. Here, you'll try to unravel the mystery of their disappearance, while slowly making your way through the dark corridors with your flashlight in hand. I really recommend that you play this mission at night with the lights turned off. You'll encounter various supernatural events, involving creepy chalkboards, mirrors, and puppets. There's one moment that I won't spoil where I legitimately got the most unexpected jump scare in recent memory. I've played a decent amount of games throughout my life, and while Ghostwire Tokyo isn't on my list of favorites, this mission alone might very well be. One of the most common complaints aimed at Ghostwire Tokyo is that the combat is repetitive and overly simplistic. And honestly, I kinda get where they're coming from, if you play it on normal difficulty. I think a lot of reviewers fall into that trap, and it makes sense. They're trying to match the experience most players will have, and on top of that, they're often racing against embargoes with multiple games stacked up. But Ghostwire Tokyo is one of those games that really benefits from being played on hard. While the combat can feel mindless on lower difficulties, just button mashing through waves of spirits, if you just crank that difficulty up, and then suddenly you're forced to play smart. You're managing resources, controlling space, and thinking a few steps ahead, instead of just holding down fire. So let's break down what you're actually working with. The core of combat revolves around ethereal weaving. Agito's spectral powers, which let you wield elemental attacks like air, water, and fire. Air is your go-to for long range. It's fast, it has a generous ammo pool, and it's perfect for picking off enemies from a distance. Water is your close range solution. It's got this wide sweeping arc that makes it a whole lot easier to deal with crowds when things get a little too up close and personal. Then you have fire, which essentially is your heavy hitter. Think of it like a spiritual hand grenade. It's slow, but it absolutely devastates anything caught in the blast radius. You also have a bow, which doesn't show up in every fight, but it is great for silently thinning out groups or sniping distant enemies before you trigger a large encounter. But where things really do get interesting is with the talismans. You have two of them. You have exposure talismans that reveal enemy cores, letting you instantly rip out weaker enemies and stagger tougher ones. They really do add a satisfying layer of strategy when you're surrounded. Then you have stun talismans, which are exactly what they sound like. They freeze enemies in place, giving you a perfect opening to unleash hell. These things are absolutely a lifesaver, especially when you're up against the Kujisagi, the tall, horrifying women with the giant scissors, who will absolutely tear you to pieces if you're not careful. And when you're playing on hard, you're not just using these tools because they look cool, you're really depending on them. You need to be constantly rotating abilities, managing your ammo types, and making quick decisions in the middle of chaos. Suddenly, what felt like a simple shooter on normal becomes something far more tactical. So no, the combat isn't shallow by design, it's shallow if you don't engage with it properly. And if you crank up that difficulty and start using everything the game gives you, it can actually be a lot of fun. By the way, I played the game on PS5 and it runs incredibly well in performance mode. I didn't run into any technical issues during my playthrough, I had no bugs, no glitches, not a single frame drop. The game feels polished from start to finish and everything just works the way it was supposed to. Load times are also really fast, which is nice since you will be doing quite a lot of fast traveling. The game is very map marker heavy. Main missions are marked on the map, so to get to them you'll make your way through Tokyo. As you progress through the city, you'll encounter various spectral entities you'll have to fight, run, or sneak by. I really dig the enemy designs. Just to mention a few, there are walkers, which are these Slenderman looking guys with umbrellas. Well, some of them look like Slenderman. Others don't look so slender. Then there are Students of Misery, which are headless schoolgirls. You have Lamentations, which are creepy looking women with hair that most of all resembles tentacles. And then, as I mentioned, you have Kuchisaki, who are those creepy scissor wielding women. See, these are all cool. Not only are their designs awesome, they're also really fun to fight. Then you have Shine Dancers. Their design is cool, I'll give them that, but man, they're a bother. They'll often spawn out of nowhere when you're collecting souls on rooftops. They appear in groups and keep flying around while blasting you with multiple projectiles. They're such a bother that I almost always just run away. But they're not the worst enemy, not by a long shot. The biggest flaw of the game, yes, bigger than the bloated map, is the Sanguine Dancers. They suck more ass than I do at driving, and I don't even have my driver's license. They'll keep teleporting all around the place, spinning through the air like the Pegasus Beyblade, more or less dodging any attacks you throw at them. So what you're really left with are two choices. You either perfectly time your attack in the very brief window before it shoots, or you dodge and weave until it goes for the barrage attack. At this moment you're able to perform a perfect block, which stuns it for a bit. But it can be extremely hard to time, so what often ends up happening is just you running around frantically, trying to dodge its barrage of attacks while using what little ammo you have left. Fighting them are just honestly all around a terrible experience. Thankfully, you'll only encounter them a few times throughout the game. Like I only encountered 1, 3 or 4 times, so that's like what, 1 every 5 hours. So even though they do suck, you'll quickly forget about them. The boss battles in Ghostwire Tokyo ain't on the same level as, say, God of War or Dark Souls. You're not getting those deep multi-phase fights that demands perfect dodges and parries. But that doesn't mean they ain't fun. In fact, they can be surprisingly intense, even if they do lean on the simpler side mechanically speaking. Most of the bosses have a distinct and eerie design, making them feel more like supernatural horror encounters than traditional action game bosses. They loom over you, their grotesque forms shifting in unsettling ways, often accompanied by haunting sound design that adds to the tension. If you're playing with a good pair of headphones and the volume turned all the way up, some of these fights can be genuinely nerve-wracking. The audio does a fantastic job. Distorted voices, eerie whispers, and sudden screeches really adds to the suspense. While the bosses don't have the deepest movesets, they do require you to stay somewhat on your toes, dodging their powerful area of effect attacks, waiting for openings, and using the right elemental weaving at the right moment really adds to a satisfying layer of strategy. Some encounters do introduce unique mechanics that shake up the standard combat formula, like needing to dispel barriers mid-fight or taking advantage of your talismans to turn the tide in your favor. So while Ghostwire Tokyo might not deliver the most technical demanding boss battles, it nails the atmosphere and tension. I'm not personally a fan of the English dub. It feels a bit off, almost as if the performances were rushed, and they lack the emotional depth needed to truly sell the characters' experiences. Some lines come across as flat, and overall it doesn't quite match the intensity or atmosphere of the game. It's not horrible, but it definitely doesn't feel like the best way to experience the story. But, and this is a big but, the Japanese voice acting is on another level entirely. It's absolutely phenomenal. Every cutscene is brought to life with performances that feel raw, believable, and deeply immersive. The voice actors pour genuine emotion into their lines, making every moment feel more impactful. Agito's voice actor in particular does an incredible job. You can hear the weight of his situation in his voice, his frustration, his grief, and the sheer desperation of a young man who's suddenly thrown into an unimaginable nightmare. His performance makes it so much easier to connect with his journey. There are moments where you can almost feel his pain, as if his voice alone is carrying the burden of everything he's lost. And this is crucial because Ghostwire Tokyo isn't just about cool combat and supernatural powers, it's a deeply emotional story about loss, regret, and perseverance. The way the characters express themselves in Japanese makes the theme hit even harder. The final moments of the game in particular are incredibly moving. It's the kind of ending that lingers with you, leaving you with a mix of gratitude for the experience and a subtle, bittersweet emptiness that sticks with you after the credits roll. At the end of the day, Ghostwire Tokyo isn't trying to completely reinvent the wheel. What it is though is a stylish, atmospheric game with a unique setting, fun as hell gameplay, and a story that keeps you invested. Whether you're into every little side quest or you just want to focus on the main story, there is really something here for you. If you've been on the fence about this game, just give it a shot. You can pick it up for $15 on discount, and at that price, it's an absolute steal. And who knows, you might be surprised at just how much fun you'll have. If you made it to the end, just know that I truly appreciate you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you played it? Are you planning to? Let's talk anything Ghostwire. Critically, out.